Hello there, Minnesota Sports Nation. This is the J&B Vikings Cavalcade. It's our premiere episode. Woo-hoo! I'm Jake, and this is Brandon, and, I really got to come down from that high sports announcer voice. Okay, so, my name really is Jake, and this is Brandon next to me, and we would like to jump right in by introducing ourselves to all of you out there in Vikings sports land, or Minnesota sports land, whatever you prefer, because there's more than just Vikings football, but we're here to talk to you about Vikings football, and so I'd like to lead off with saying, hey Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I worked at KFan for 2 years. I was an intern there. I didn't get the job, but that was kind of on my own terms. I kind of left and tried to pursue sports writing, so I started out my own site when I was 16, called Lemke's a Lot. It was a Vikings-based blog, and then eventually developed into writing for Vikings Gab and Vikings Territory, which I write for right now, so you can also check that out. I like to play music. Other than that, just football 24/7, other than working and everything. But I'm on Twitter. You can follow me at Branden Lemke, MN.
All right. Well, I have kind of a similar story. I didn't work at KFAN or anything, but I did grow up just as a huge sports fan, and I went to NDSU up in Fargo for journalism, thinking about getting into the sports journalism world. That hasn't quite happened yet, but I did learn quite a bit about sports journalism and, in some cases, sports broadcasting, too. And so that's just my story. I've been a huge Vikings fan, well, a huge everything fan here in Minnesota, but my biggest love, I'd say it probably is the Vikings. Otherwise, I don't know if I'd be sitting here doing this podcast right now.
Right, yeah, and I've been a Vikings fan since I was 6 years old. I've not missed one game since then. So yeah, we're both definitely diehard Vikings fans here, and it is opening day in free agency too. And Vikings have not made any moves of significant signing other than our own players. We have signed Phil Loadholt to a multiple-year contract. We have re-signed Jerome Felton to a 3-year deal worth $7.5 million, as well as Jerome Simpson and Joe Berger to a 1-year deal. Free safety Jamarcus Sanford was also signed to a 2-year deal today. No new free agents coming in, despite releasing Antoine Winfield at the cornerback position, freeing up $7.5 million in cap space. What are they going to do with that free money?
I really don't know, and I mean, they traded away Percy Harvin, too, and that freed up a ton of cap money, too. But then you come out and you hear Aaron, listen to me, Rick Spielman saying all the stuff about, well, we might not go after anybody significant, and then it's just like, well, wait, then why in the world did you go ahead and free up all that cap space?
Well, and what Spielman said, too, was they're keeping all options open, but they were really hinting at getting our own guys signed first, then maybe going after a few free agents. They're still a big believer in the draft being how you rebuild your team, which I think, personally, that only works to a certain extent. You do need to bring in veteran guys, especially at positions of need like wide receiver right now. When Jerome Simpson's the best receiver on your roster, you do need help. And, maybe they have a plan. They do have 2 first-round picks now. I mean, I'm not saying the Vikings the season's done or anything like that. I'm just saying I'm a little bit worried because Greg Jennings is still out there. Danny Amendola is still out there. Mike Mullins is gone. He's with the Dolphins now. Wes Walker's out there. We got targets that we can go get, and so far no one's jumping the gun on them. I just hope we make a move on somebody. Even Brandon Gibson from the Rams, he could come at an affordable price and make a big impact right away.
I think you definitely could too, and I agree with everything you just said about, we've got to have a kind of a mix of veterans and young guys. I think what Spielman's doing though, and like I said, I don't know if I'm defending him or not because I'm kind of perplexed too, but I really feel like Rick Spielman is preparing everything, like he's building towards the stadium years. Like we talked about this last night and earlier today.
Right.
It's my belief, and I tweeted about this earlier too, and I will give you guys my Twitter handle in a little bit, but let me finish this thought first. I feel like he is building toward the years when the Vikings will be in that new stadium, and I think he wants the team to peak at that time. I just don't know if I agree with the way he's going about it. I mean, I get you want to be young so that you can give Christian Ponder, you can give him a bunch of young guys to kind of grow up with.
Right.
I get that, but you're right, though. We do need a healthy mix of veteran leadership, and I just don't know. I don't know if we're going to get that unless you sign someone like a Greg Jennings to a deal. And Greg Jennings is a good slot receiver.
Right, and I mean, if you want to be, I mean, who wouldn't want to be at a point where you can be a good team when you're an elite team in the NFL when you get your new stadium deal done. But for the time being, when the team went from 3-13 to 10-6 last year, why would you not want to peak right now as well? Because 4 years in the NFL is a long time. Look at our team 4 years ago. Who do we have on the roster? I was talking to you about this earlier today. We had Brett Favre,
Gone.
Brett Favre's gone. Sidney Rice,
Gone.
Bernard Berrien,
Gone.
Percy Harvin,
Gone.
Dia Williams,
Gone.
Tyrell Johnson. The list goes on and on, offense and defense. I mean, everybody, it changes year to year. So, who's to know? I mean, Adrian Peterson's probably the only safe bet that you can imagine being on this roster in 4 years. Ponder, who knows what's going to happen with him down the road. Who knows what's going to happen with the defensive players even, Harrison Smith is going to be there a while, but, you got Chris Cook, whose contract will be up by then. You got, there's just countless things that can happen in 4 years. So you want to be good every year, you'd think, as a GM, wouldn't you?
Yep, definitely. I agree with that 100%. I think we should try to go out. I mean, it's like, and you talked about Brett Favre. I remember when the Vikings got Brett Favre. They had just come off a season where they were 10-6, and they were good, but more mediocre. They had Tavares Jackson as their quarterback. They just went one and done at the hands of the Philadelphia Eagles and Donovan McNabb, who would go on to play for us later, of course. But at that point, then the Vikings saw, Brett Favre's available. You know what? We're going to go all in. So they gave Favre that 2-year deal. And at least in the first year, it was worth every penny up until a certain point. But we won't get into that today.
Right. Yep. Today's mainly about free agency because it's that time of year. We'll take a break and we'll come back and talk to you about who we think that the Vikings are going to go after in free agency.
You are listening to J&B's Vikings Cavalcade. We'll be right back after these messages.
And welcome back to J&B's Vikings Cavalcade. This is Brandon along with Jake. We're back with you talking about free agency. Now, there are rumors around the Twitter world that Danny Amendola is being pursued by the Minnesota Vikings. I am very neutral on the move. We've traded Percy Harvin. We have a guy that we drafted last year in the 4th round who is thought to have an opportunity now that Harvin's gone, and Jarius Wright, who has shown that he can play the slot. He played the slot the entire time that Percy Harvin was out last year. My question is, why are we going after slot receivers?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of have a concern about Danny Amendola, too. The same kind of concern that I have about Greg Jennings. Both of them seem to be injury-prone, and I don't want the Vikings going out and dropping, say, 5 years, $60 million like Mike Wallace got with Miami.
Well, I don't think that would be the kind of money that we'd offer him, but, it's just you got to fill your needs when Jerome Simpson's the best wide receiver on your roster. You got to make something happen in free agency.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying that I just have concerns because both of those guys are injury prone. I would rather go after a guy like Wes Welker. He's been so good with Tom Brady out in New England, and sure, he had an ACL injury a couple years ago, but he's bounced back from that nicely.
Right.
He's been really, really good ever since he came back from the injury a couple years back. So I think he'd be a perfect fit for the Vikings.
He's a very good player, but again, he is a slot receiver, and he is going to be asking for a lot of money. He did post on Twitter, I believe, that he is waiting for the Patriots to offer him a new contract. And as just to let the listeners know right now, me and Jake are in a solidified room right now with no source of internet, so we cannot bring you breaking news right now, but so for all we know, Wes Welker could be a New England Patriot right now. But what I'm saying is we got to keep an eye on guys like Brandon Gibson, and I would like to go after Greg Jennings just because we do have the money, and yeah, he's injury prone, but he's a solid locker room guy that could come in, make an impact right away. The Vikings know who he is. They play him twice a year, so I mean. Brandon Gibson or Greg Jennings are two guys that I would personally like to get. Danny Amendola would be, I wouldn't be mad that we signed him because at least we're signing somebody. I just think we don't need to go after slot receivers right now.
Yeah, and I can agree with you there about Greg Jennings. It's a bit of a gamble to sign an injury-prone guy like that, but if he does stay healthy, it would pay off huge because, like you said, he would have a great influence on a locker room full of younger guys.
Yeah, especially for guys as inexperienced as Jarius Wright and Stephen Burton and whoever else we bring in. I'm sure we're not going to bring in a lot of veterans. You know what I mean? Especially at the wide receiver position. On defense, I can see us bringing in some veterans, especially if we don't get a deal done with Jasper Brinkley or Aaron Henderson. Maybe the linebacker becomes something that we go after in free agency. And there are a few good linebackers out there right now. You know, Ellerby's gone. He's with the Dolphins. But I do think that the draft is also going to play a factor in what we do in free agency, because we do have the 2 first-round picks now. And, you know, do you use both those picks on receivers? We're for sure going to use one of them. I mean, that's no one is arguing that. But,
yeah.
But what do you do with the other first-round pick? Do you get a linebacker? Do you get a defensive tackle? You know, because LaTroy Guion is mainly a rotational guy. He is a very good player, but I wouldn't consider him every down defensive tackle. So there's a lot of different things probably going through Rick Spielman and the Vikings' mind right now. But it's, you know, stirring the fans, because when you release a fan favorite like Antoine Winfield, and, you know, granted, Percy Harvin wanted to be traded, and it's a good thing that we did trade him, because he wasn't going to do anything here. He wasn't going to play here next year regardless, but he was a fan favorite. You get rid of 2 fan favorites in one day, or in the span of 2 days, and then you don't sign a big name free agent once you're freeing up all that cap space. Is kind of disappointing.
Well, it's like getting rid of Adrian Peterson and then going out and signing Joik Bell.
I don't know if it's quite that bad, but yeah, and pretty bad. Adrian Peterson, you got to wonder what he's thinking right now. You know, he wasn't happy when Percy Harvin was traded. He made that clear on Twitter. He said that he felt like he got stabbed in the stomach or kicked in the stomach several times. You know, and now with Winfield gone too, there's another locker room guy that's gone. So they do have a lot of rebuilding to do, but, you know, we just got to put our faith in Spielman. That's our only hope right now.
Yeah, the Winfield thing surprised me, because you wouldn't think they'd get rid of such a crucial locker room guy. I mean, again, it goes back to his, you know, to his kind of belief of building through the draft and getting younger. I kind of get that, but the Winfield thing still kind of perplexes me. Yeah, he was getting older, but he was still just as good as he ever was, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean,
maybe slowing down a little bit, but he was like Ray Lewis. Maybe not as dominant as he used to be, but still a darn good player.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we saw him last year make hits that he was making 10 years ago. You know, he's one of the hardest hitting corners in the league, and that's what he's known for. He's not going to get you all the turnovers you want, but he's a solid player, and he's very consistent, and he's still playing at a high level even in his 30s.
Yep. Yeah, he's been very good for the Vikings. One of the best acquisitions the Vikings ever made.
Right. You know, now who's he going to go to? Are the Vikings going to try to re-sign him? You know, there's a lot of questions still up in the air, but it is only the first day of free agency.
Yeah, and let's go back to the draft for a second. You were wondering if we were going to use one pick on a receiver or both of them. It really depends on who the Vikings get. If they don't get a veteran, then I really do think they use both of those first-round picks on wide receivers and then just kind of roll the dice and see if they pan out, which is kind of risky, but again, I can kind of see Spielman's logic in that. You know, it's just like, you know, I mean, well, hopefully they don't turn out like Troy Williamson.
Well, yeah, and I don't think there's a lot of Troy Williamsons in this draft, or really in any draft for that matter. It's hard to find a bust like that. But the good thing that works for the Vikings in this year's draft is that the wide receiver class is pretty deep. You know, there's Cordell Patterson, Keenan Allen, Quentin Patton, Tavon Austin, a guy that's kind of like Percy Harvin, only can't break the tackles. It isn't as tough, but he's a very fast slot receiver that can catch the ball. Big playmaker. You also got guys like, let's see here, DeAndre Hopkins. You know, he could be another solution at the wide receiver there, a big guy that had a good combine. And, you know, there are options there, but I think you still need to sign a free agent of some sort, someone that's an upgrade over what we already have, and then draft a guy. Because when you do that, you bring in experience and you bring in possibly a new leader in the receiving core, like a guy like Keenan Allen, or a guy I like out of Louisiana Tech is Quentin Patton. He's from a smaller school. He didn't have a great quarterback thrown to him, but he's still, you know, posting numbers just like any other guy in this top 5, top 10 wide receiver class, you know?
And that's the big thing. You know, Ponder, he had a bad stretch last year, but I mean, look at the receivers he was playing with besides Percy Harvin. He didn't really have a ton to work with. Now, he persevered. He did well at the end of the season. Kind of got screwed out of that Packers game with the injury, the playoff Packer game anyway. But at the same time, you just got to think, you know, you got to give Christian Ponder some toys to play with.
Right, and it's only going to make him better. It's going to make your receivers better. It's going to make the whole offense better.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
I don't know. So what do you think? We've got a few different topics to talk about here.
We sure do. I wish we had phone lines so we could take some calls, but we do not have that as of right now.
That's because we are just a podcast. We would be taking calls right now if we could. We would be doing this live from Buffalo Wild Wings if we could.
Which is still in the works.
Possibly, yes. That would be awesome.
That would be absolutely awesome. But for right now, we're going to go to break.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
You are listening to J&B's Vikings Cavalcade. This is B from J&B's Vikings Cavalcade. Thank you. Good night!
Well, folks, that's the end of our show. Hope you had as much fun as we did.
Well, it's actually not the end of the show anymore.
It's not?
No. We have some breaking news out of Vikings territory.
Oh, really?
The website that I just happened to write for. Yes, it looks like Greg Jennings is deciding between the Green Bay Packers
Boo!
and the Minnesota Vikings. Woo!
Yeah!
Come on, Jennings. Sign with the Vikings. That's all I can say to you right now. If you're listening, which you're not, because this isn't even on the radio as of yet.
Yeah, you don't even know who we are,
You don't
do
even
you?
know. But anyway, I hope Jennings comes here, and that's what I was just saying. It kind of defeats our whole, Jennings speculation because now it is becoming more realistic. And it was reported too that Miami actually had interest in Greg Jennings as well as Mike Wallace. Well, Wallace is gone, and it looks like Jennings may be in purple soon. And what shocks me the most is where are the Packers coming from? It seemed like Jennings was long gone.
I don't know. I mean, this might just be... Didn't they try and keep Brett Favre from coming to the Vikings, too? I mean, they just hate us that much off the football field, too, that they try and keep their best players from coming here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jennings being here, that's another reason I want Greg Jennings here, is because we can stick it to the Packers with their own medicine, if you want to call it that.
It's just too bad that Brett Favre's not still playing. Favre to Jennings for the Vikings would be nice.
I don't know if I want a 41, 42. How old is he now? 43, 40. He's in
25.
Yeah, let's just say 25. We'll come to a compromise on that. I don't want a 25-year-old quarterback. Just kidding.
Okay then. Alrighty.
All right. Well, I don't know. I just hope this deal gets done today. I mean, we can't. The Vikings have a problem with lingering over when. Look at a couple years ago when T.J. Houshmandzadeh. Now I'm glad we did not sign Houshmandzadeh, but there was like a 3-day period when it was Houshmandzadeh choosing between us and Seattle, and we lingered, and he went to Seattle. That worked out horribly for Seattle, but this doesn't look like it's going to be a Houshmandzadeh type deal. This is Greg Jennings, a guy that's still in his prime and still producing at a high level. Yeah, he has some injury issues, but he can definitely come in and help our team win games right away.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it's just a good move by the Vikings if we do sign Greg Jennings. But
yeah, well, you think this is why they freed up all that money?
It was
I would like to see him come here.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Twitter was talking about with, it was between, maybe we got Darrelle Revis, maybe we got Victor Cruz, maybe we got, maybe we're going after Greg Jennings, no one really knows what's going to happen. But, I was one of those people saying that, so I shouldn't say it in a mocking voice. But I do believe we're going to see something happen in free agency with the Vikings this year. Unlike previous years where you signed guys that, maybe had 10, 20 catches the year before. And Jerome Simpson had a fair amount of catches in Cincinnati, but wasn't really thought of to be as, a threat. Jerome Simpson coming, yay, Super Bowl. It's not like that.
Yeah.
But with Greg Jennings, that does kind of bring that atmosphere, because now you're talking, you got a weapon for Ponder. You got another weapon for Ponder. You got Kyle Rudolph still. You got Adrian Peterson, who is the MVP of the league, by the way. One of the best offensive lines in football. A solid defense. Hopefully, can stay solid. Yep. I mean, we're talking a good playoff run here.
And Spielman knows how to draft. That's the one thing that he really truly has.
He sure does.
His methods might be kind of screwy, but in the end, I mean, look what he did last year for us. That was a phenomenal draft, and I'm hoping that this draft can be half the draft that was.
Right.
If it is, I think the Vikings are moving in the right direction. And don't you just love when the sports world just kind of explodes? I mean, that's what I love about Twitter now and that whole thing. You can know about this stuff for like 5 seconds, and then, just moments later, boom, there's a tweet. Boom, there's another tweet. Boom, there's another tweet.
Absolutely.
Boom, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, most of the time it's not like they're bits or anything. Most of the time it's true facts. And Twitter has become a big, reliable news source for sports fans.
It makes following sports media a heck of a lot of fun, that's for sure. I mean, I love... And people might get down like, everything's happening too fast. I really don't see it that way, because now it's like, you know, this is the best time to kind of follow sports media because it just explodes with the advent of Twitter and everything as a source now for all these things. Yeah, there might be some jumping the gun, but in the end, it just makes it really cool to be able to follow all this stuff in real time and see all these people's reactions like, oh my god, what's happening?
Absolutely, and we are going to look at getting a Twitter page too. I think we should definitely do that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep, absolutely. But for now, we got the podcast. Hopefully you guys like this. This was our first podcast, J&B's Vikings Cavalcade. And I am Brandon. This is Jake, and we will see you next time.
Yep, and before we go, I got to give you my Twitter handle since he gave you his at the beginning of the show. Mine is Jake Sports Spot, and that's pretty much the name of my blog too. I decided to rename myself a little bit, but you guys don't really care about hearing all those details anyway.
That's in the past.
Yeah.
This is
but that's
future.
the thing, and check out my blog, which is called Schroer Sports Spot. Oh, gee, pretty original Twitter name then, if my blog's already called that.
Absolutely. And in case you guys missed mine, it's at Branden Lemke MN. We'll see you next time.
Alrighty, that is the end of our first episode, and we will see you next time on the J&B Vikings Cavalcade.